Episode 6, Football, Feminism, and You. Another great episode. Ashley, I'll let you take this one away.
I like this because it's two really good stories. I don't know what the C story would be with Abed. Is this one where Abed lays low for a week too, actually? It might be.
You're right, yeah.
But Jeff finds out that the dean is using his face for promotional Greendale purposes.
Right. And he's mortified.
Not a fan.
Yeah.
He hates it, actually.
Not a fan.
Yes.
So he goes to the dean, and the dean essentially blackmails him into getting Troy to join Greendale's football team, which Troy would never want to do because the Greendale football team is a joke.
Oh, God, yeah.
A literal joke. It's a literal joke that we laugh at in the episode.
Exactly. Yeah. So that whole thing is going on, but while that's going on, Annie is at the point where she feels like she's making some progress with Troy, and she's tutoring him and helping him learn and getting him away from being that horrible jock and feeling like she's contributing something to his life and loving that she's able to be there for him.
In love with him. It's very,
exactly.
very clear.
They make that very clear. She's infatuated with Troy.
And she's being a little manipulative with it, too, because
1000%.
Troy isn't completely aware, and I like that Jeff, at some point in the episode, calls her out on it, being like, listen, you're sweet and nice, and you're all, bubbles and fucking sunshine, but right now you are definitely trying to work Troy in the situation he's in your favor, so that way you could potentially end up being with him instead of being like, no, I'm doing it just because I want him to be the best him. It's like, yeah, you are, but you can't pretend like you don't want to be the best him with Annie. You know, you're not getting something out of this. You're not doing this just because it's the kindness of your heart. Even though she is an incredibly kind person who's compassionate anyway.
So it's part that, but also part she wants to get with him.
Ulterior motives
as well.
They're both manipulative.
I mean, who wouldn't be? It's childish goddamn Gambino.
Oh, exactly.
Baby Gambino.
Let me get at that. And then I love the Shirley and Britta get their moment in this episode too, because Shirley helps Britta learn bathroom etiquette. We found out again even more about Britta and her background and how she just she
doesn't fit in with other girls.
Would never invite her to go to the bathroom together and.
Because they were always jealous of her.
Exactly. But then we also, Britta doesn't see that she's such a fucking sandbag to everybody's fun. But it's God damn it, Britta. Stop thinking you're better than everybody else. You're actually kind of like a buzzkill to be around.
Oh, yeah. Every time Shirley tried making conversation, she basically said, yeah, well, Hitler killed 3 million Jews as a response. And then she's like, Britta, we're just bathroom talk. We're just talking. Not we're not on, this is CNN. You need to chill the hell out. You need to be softer.
And this
and you'll connect more with people.
This one's really fun because I think it kind of shows that even though characters can be manipulated and stuff, they still have a lot of autonomy. So at the end, Jeff is trying to push him to be on the football team, and then Annie's like, "Why are you doing this? Why are you giving up everything? And you didn't care about that." And he's just like, "Yeah, well, I went out on top, and I was under all this pressure that that's why I basically gave up my scholarship. Now I can play on this team, and it can just be for fun. It can just be
pressure.
Exactly. There's no pressure because they suck. I can just go out and I can be the best, and I don't have to worry." And I was like, I like that they kind of advocate for their characters like that, and they're like, we're not going to make it be like, oh, he's just this big victim and everybody's using him. It's at the end, it's yeah, people manipulated him, but he still had autonomy over his final decision. And it's yeah, I decided to do football, but not because you made me or because anybody made me. It's because it's actually doing something for me.
Absolutely.
And I liked that. Yeah. And that we even kind of see that in the Shirley Britta episode or story, where it's they both kind of learn something about each other, and they're like, okay, well, we're both willing to give. You can be your crazy self, and Shirley can be Shirley can have these expectations of just be there for another person. You can be crazy and everything, but there is a time to just sit there and be there for another person, And I think Jeff learns that. He's like, oh, I was trying to control him, and I can just let him do his thing, and I can actually just be a friend and be supportive.
Right.
So I think it's a really good episode, and it's really fun. I think what we'll talk about later as the series goes on, though, is as the budget and the resources get tighter for the show, the episodes where we have opportunities to just have fun and have these kind of zany storylines, that opportunity gets diminished.
Oh yeah,
we got to talk about that.
Yeah, people make care oh yeah, this is just kind of a fun. We're doing this story because we can, and it's funny, and it was a good idea, and that's really it. Not really because there's anything they're trying to build to.
Exactly. That's actually a great point. So episode 7, Introduction to Statistics. This is the first Halloween episode.
Yes.
I'll let you take this one, Stone.
So it's Halloween at Greendale, and they're in the Spanish class. And Annie, being the go-getter that she is, decides to opt in on a rarely used
Extra credit
opportunity with Senior Chang by saying like, well, if you have a party,
a cultural
event party, and you have a faculty member there, you'll get extra credit. And no one's ever tried because we want to have an extra credit party at school, but and involve a teacher, but
Annie.
Here we are, and Annie's gonna throw it, and she's all excited. She's gonna run.
I imagine Annie's like the girls from Booksmart who are like super psyched to get their teacher's phone number.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Absolutely.
Yeah. She probably loved being able to text Senior Chang about the party details, and he probably was just like, I could probably flush this phone down the toilet for 3 days and nothing would happen.
Yep.
So Annie decides to throw a Dia de los Muertos party.
And she wants Jeff to come. She wants Jeff to come because Jeff is a cool guy.
Yes.
Annie explains that every party she's had, everyone's left by 9 o'clock because they had to go watch the news, which is just like
So sad.
fucking ouch. That is just mean.
It's
But she wants to have a safeguard against that. And Jeff's so cool and magnetic, and his charisma is so like hype and big dick level that people are going to want to stay at her party.
If he's
so it's
there,
really
yeah.
important. And she like gives her little puppy eyes and is really cute and really hilarious. And Jeff basically agrees to show up, and the whole study group's going to show up, and it's going to be a whole fun thing. But then Jeff also meets Professor Slater, statistics professor, where we get to see kind of like this first taste of like, well, if Britta and Jeff kind of seems like it's kind of going on the back burner, this is the episode where it's like, we're not really even talking about that much at all. In fact, Britta kind of becomes there to just be like a friend, is like, oh, well, what are you doing when she's in her costume later?
Yep.
But we meet Professor Slater, and she kind of is like Jeff's match. Like current Jeff's like, oh, well, you're kind of witty and fun, and like she's clear,
confident, she's sexy.
Exactly.
She
She's built Jeff in a lot of
seriously.
ways.
Yeah, she really
but
is.
she actually is smart, and she's, earned everything she's worked for.
Yeah.
But they have a really fun kind of kismet connection off the bat, and he's pursuing her immediately. Britta kind of is like later. In fact, there's a scene where Shirley and Britta are walking down the hallway, and Jeff literally is following Slater, and it's just like, oh yeah, I got something to go do. And it's just like, just let you know, Britta, to your face, Jeff's moving on.
Yeah.
And Shirley gets her feelings hurt because of her own reasons.
Britta's
We learn a little bit more.
Exactly.
We learn a little bit more about Shirley through the course of the episode, about how she has resentment issues, about like not being loyal or faithful to your interests or your love, or like not being true to your love, and then we learn more and more about it as the episode goes on.
And we learn why, and it's obviously because she has her own issues with her relationship, with how her relationship deteriorated.
On Britta's situation with Professor Slater, even though Britta isn't as upset as she's putting out.
Or I think Britta isn't upset because she doesn't realize she's upset yet.
Exactly.
That's something that I think develops in a few more episodes.
Yeah. So then we get to the party, and everyone's dressed up. And we get the start of the Britta not wearing sexy costumes because she's tired of women wearing sexy costumes and using Holly as an excuse to do so. And she's dressed as a squirrel with a giant papier-mâché nut. The least sexy thing I think that you could possibly imagine. We have Starburns dressed in a toga.
I mean, but she also dresses as a full ham one year.
And a T-Rex with no arms the next year.
The ham is the least sexy for me.
Oh.
Yeah, probably.
She's a full hunk of ham. She's like a rump roast.
Yeah, I just pulled that rump over, but...
Anyway. And then, so then Annie throws the party. Yeah. Jeff is too busy trying to pursue Slater.
So he ditches the party.
I was pretending to be Batman. Yeah, and Jeff goes with Chang to the adult faculty party across this campus where they're having a faculty Halloween party where Slater's at, and... Jeff's basically decided, I want to pursue that rather than be at like Annie's kitty party.
Meanwhile,
it's kitty party.
Pierce ends up trading drugs with another perfect recurring character, Starburns.
Yup.
Trades drugs with him and then ends up having a fucking crazy trip at the party. And they need Jeff to come and rescue them, basically.
Yeah, because he's being confronted that he's older than everyone else, and it's showing because like no one knows what his costume is, and he looks like ridiculous, and now
Pierce.
Pierce. And now he's tripping. He's kind of being confronted with like, you're old, and then Jeff kind of tells him at this point like, Pierce, you're old.
Tell me about the Beatles, Pierce.
Tell me about Woodstock and Sputnik, Pierce.
That's one of my favorites.
So, and it's like this thing that kind of gets, I mean, obviously, but Pierce doesn't get confronted with it. He's like 40 years older than a lot of the characters here. So then he starts having an existential crisis, which after they go and they follow Jeff to the faculty party, and they kind of show that they are all kitty, and then like surrounded by adults in an adult party, like they're totally getting into hijinks, and like Jeff is actually struggling to be like the adult that he is.
Yeah.
And then eventually Pierce goes back and has his own existential crisis, and then Jeff has to kind of be daddy. I would say he's the daddy of the group. He needs to solve problems. He's that's kind of like his role.
Yeah, and they try to come to him a couple times, and he's like, "You guys, you're not being cool. I'm trying to be cool. I'm trying to get with Slater."
Really resistant, yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And then finally at the very end, he really realizes that Pierce and his friends need him, and he actually sacrifices his chance to go home with Slater to be there for his new group of friends.
Yep.
So I think this is a really good first instance where Jeff throws himself out there for the entire group and actually sacrifices something for once.
Loses
something that he really wants.
He tried for it too. He even put on his costume. He said he wouldn't put on costume for his friends, but when he was trying to get some pee, all of a sudden he has his cowboy costume. So, and they call that out. It's like, oh, all of a sudden you care. And it's because Jeff was trying for what he cared for. He showed he's selfish.
Yep.
He'll try for what he wants. And it's kind of like you point out, it's cool that we get to see him kind of shift that interest into
once he picks the group over himself. Yeah.
Because I was literally walking out with her.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? Because I think Jeff understands that he's needed there. And
his heart goes a little bit more in this episode. Just a bit.
So next episode 8, Home Economics. Anybody?
Any takers?
This is a fun one.
Oh, one last thing. The last episode, Abed does this awesome Batman thing the whole time and saves the day and saves Jeff and Pierce.
So true.
And,
oh my God, how did I forget
everyone
that?
kind of treats him like a joke, but then he uses his joke reference to do something super cool,
heroic,
and he gets to be treated equally. Because guess what? You can be a dork, but be a main character hero just like everyone else. So that's a little side thing. It's fun.
I like that.
All the characters have fun little moments. Everyone's fun. Shirley goes nuts on Slater.
Oh my God,
yes.
We see her do some gnarly shit.
She's dealing with her own personal issues with her marriage, where there
infidelity.
Exactly, and she keeps trying to think that she's helping Britta, but she's really doing it for herself, and admits that to Britta.
True.
And then Britta has a nice moment where Shirley's like, I bet Professor Slater's actually a nice lady, and then Britta's like, yeah, nice and pretentious, and snaps a little head off her award or trophy.
Because they are good people, but Britta is salty.
Exactly, and it's maybe I don't want to be with Jeff, but very much like Annie and Vaughn.
Yeah,
exactly.
Great point. Oh my God, you're so right.
And then that brings us into Home Economics way before Annie is even into, Vaughn. Annie is still very much into Troy.
That's her after. Yeah, because they don't really introduce the Jeff thing till the end, I bet. That's true.
Because she still very much has a crush on Troy in this episode. So Jeff gets kicked out of his condo in this episode. They find out that he is living out your car.
You're living out your car, boy. That's the thing. We're confronted with Jeff, and we've always kind of suspected he's very materialistic. He has super high standards. He's high maintenance. And now it's like, but nothing you got, you earned. And now you're dealing with the consequences of that. And it's like you're living in your car. You're brushing your teeth with a water bottle outside of your car.
Cooking on a hot plate.
Cooking on a hot plate parked in your campus's parking lot. And that's where you're at right now.
Yeah. But you still have this facade of but okay.
Exactly, and I've got it together, and I'm fine. Everything's okay.
Yep.
And he ends up moving in with Abed.
Yep.
Yes, and that was a real fun pairing. Yeah.
Because he loves it way more than he thought and falls way down the rabbit hole.
Oh, yeah.
It is way more fun to not care than it is to,
to care.
Care, in the background. Because Jeff cares so much. That's the thing. He says he doesn't care, but he tries super hard to put on the image of not caring. Actually not caring is cocaine to him. He's like, oh my God, I've been living life without enjoyment. I might as well just remember Frank when he's drinking the beer and he's gargling the beer. He's like,
yes, that's Jeff.
That's just, and he does it with the can. With the Ready Whip.
Mm-hmm.
And we get to see that Jeff, without his selfish ambition, turns into a turd. He turns into a useless person.
Exactly. Yeah.
He has no purpose unless himself.
Yep.
Which kind of informs his decisions and why he is the way he is. It's he kind of needs to live for himself. Otherwise, what does he have to live for?
Yeah,
that's true.
And Britta, with the help of Abed, helps bring that to his attention.
Yeah.
I always love that Abed gets her to do it, but I love that Britta's the one to bring Jeff back to reality from that. Be no, you're self-centered and shallow, and that's who you are, and that's who you need to be a little bit.
Yeah, and you actually need that to help you function like you should.
And not just be this person who doesn't contribute anything.
Exactly.
Because he does have something to contribute.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, you know what? I think that's a really, really great
We get to see
point.
that more types of people besides the good, well-intentioned, right protagonist can be helpful and productive and can do things. It's not just Annie's the only one that does good, and Jeff's the only one that does naughty.
Exactly.
People can be bad and do good.
I love
do bad.
Going through and rewatching and talking about season 1 because in every episode there's really an instance where characters are one-on-one just being there for each other and showing them it's okay to mess up, it's okay to be this. and we're still going to be there for you, and we're going to help you grow and learn from it. I
Yeah.
think they do a really good job at establishing the fact that they are becoming a family and getting to know each other and break down those walls in this season.
Yeah,
Yes.
and they really show up for
Mhm.
one another.
Oh,
You're
yeah,
totally
every time
right.
they're there. Because even Shirley's helping Annie try
Thank
to,
you.
with Troy this entire time, even though Annie is
That's a
just
cute
losing
B
her
story,
mind.
too.
Oh
yeah.
God, she is, and it
She's
is
so
really
weak
cute.
and little still.
B
She's
story.
trying to grow as a person.
She is, and she
be more
can't
aggressive.
be open with the fact that she's wanting Troy.
Mhm.
Troy is blind to it. He's openly pursuing somebody else, and she dorkily helps him because she just so badly wants to be involved and
Wants to be
want to help.
helpful.
Yep.
And she
Yeah.
hopes that he's gonna be in a rom-com and wake up and see that she's been in front of
been
him
her
the whole
all
The whole
time.
time.
Yes.
She's all that.
Oh my God. And she's confronted with the reality that it's not,
Yeah.
and she deserves better.
Yep.
Yeah.
And as much as the whole episode is her struggling with how to vocalize that and how to act upon it in a way that's authentic to her.
Mhm.
She has, like you said, Shirley there to kind of show her worth and to show her he doesn't see you like that. You're giving so much to somebody who doesn't appreciate it,
Yeah.
and you need to stop doing that for your sake.
Yes.
You know?
Exactly.
Exactly.
I really appreciate that story.
Yeah.
And I like that it ends with Annie doing it in a
Yeah.
way that's right for her.
I like
She
that.
runs out of the hospital that she
In her gown.
dorkily gets herself into in her gown with no panties
I do too,
underneath, and takes her blanket back from Troy that
from
she gives him
underneath Troy.
while him and his date are sitting on it.
Yep.
I know I didn't say anything, but for me, this is huge.
Exactly. And exactly, it's Annie being authentic to who she is. I appreciate that all of these characters go through this journey of growth and change,
So true.
but in ways that are authentic for them and in ways that seem realistic to their character.
Exactly, like that little thing, but like she says, that was huge for me, and it's like that was huge.
That
for
was
Annie.
huge for Annie,
It was.
right? Like, Annie is all about being a people pleaser and
Yeah.
having harmony
Mhm.
and being able to stand up for herself and be like, oh, this might make Troy mad, and I'm so obsessed with him liking me because I'm so in love with him.
Yeah.
Her
But I don't
taking
wanna
that
do
step
that.
is huge,
Yeah.
Like,
So
we
they're
all
not
see
to
that.
help because it's hurting her. Like
Yep.
you can be help as much as you want, but if you're gonna help to the point where it hurts you,
It's hurt.
maybe
Yeah.
you shouldn't help in that
Yeah.
situation. You're not a bad person for not being like, I'm here to. No, I can't. I want to help you, Troy, with anything you want because I love you so
Mhm.
much, and I want to be close
Yep.
to you. It's like, yeah, but you're literally helping him out the door.
Yeah, so true. So that basically wraps up that episode, right?
Yeah, Troy doesn't end up with anybody, and
Nope.
Annie just learns to be a little bit more assertive.
And,
Boy, does that grow.
And basically, Britta helps, like you said, Jeff see that these parts of his personality are core to him, and that he just needs to find a middle ground,
Exactly.
and eventually, I think he stops eventually living in his
He'll
car.
get back. Yeah, eventually.
All right, episode. So
Debate. Jeff and Annie, go through their whole debate.
Go
The
through
last
their-
scene changes I want to say trends and threads, and I keep saying trends.
Friends.
The
Throw them
threads.
together.
You know what I mean.
Trends
The threads that
and
go through the show. Now it's a word, bitches. Call Webster. Threads is a thing.
Threads.
Thank you. The threads of the show, and it's gonna happen. The threads of the show that we see and how they contribute to it. It's like, oh, see, this adds up to this, adds to this thing. This is part of this relationship.
Exactly.
This social link grows. Whatever.
Like
what
Jeff
have
and
you.
Annie, this episode very much contributes.
This
to
is when
Jeff
the
and Annie.
relationship stuff kind of starts. It's like,
And that's
okay,
where
yeah.
we see that there's some romantic
connection.
tension between
They're
them.
both
for
willing to
sure.
go crazy, and they're both very
Yes.
strong-willed when
And they
they're
push
about what they
each
care
other.
about.
And one thing I really like about the episode is they're both confronted with things about themselves that they don't like to admit.
Yep.
Jeff is confronted with the fact that you can't sweet talk your way through everything.
Mhm.
Sometimes
Yep.
stuff has to be built on
You have
content.
to try, yeah.
And you have to try, and he's confronted with that, and Annie's confronted with you can have all of the facts and all of the
Data.
data that you could possibly have,
Mhm.
but unless you have a little bit of what Jeff brings to the table
Mhm.
too,
Exactly.
you're not going to be successful either.
Yep.
And we get to see more of Annie growing. Speaking of the last episode, where Annie kind of grows out of her shell a little bit. She really steps out of her shell a lot
Even
because she
more.
has to perform or do it on a stage, and she does. And we can see how more and more she becomes kind of the force that she is, rather than just the little meek schoolgirl.
Yeah.
How she
Yeah.
becomes her own presence. And Jeff helps contribute and build that because she learns you need to push and be big, and she starts to because of this
And
and
I-
the relationship thing.
Yeah.
That's
and it basically all of that culminates and comes together in her being like, no, I'm going to take a risk. I'm going to not go by the book. I'm not going to.
Oh,
I'm going to go
yeah.
off script,
Mm.
and I'm going to do something risky and crazy. And she does that by kissing Jeff.
Jeff.
Yeah.
To show, because we haven't talked about that the villain in this episode is this guy in a wheelchair
Oh,
In an
who's the
electric
biggest
wheelchair.
douchebag asshole.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the argument that they're arguing is like, is man human bad or good? And he's arguing that people are inherently good, and Annie and Jeff are arguing they're inherently bad, and they just go at each other. And he is the grossest dickwad manipulator. Oh,
yeah, but then everybody has to feel bad for him. Yeah, exactly.
Fuck that guy. And he's smart though, and he uses this genius tactic of like using himself as like a weapon to prove that people are good. And then Annie is like takes a page out of Jeff's book because Jeff is like thunderstruck. He's like, I've been defeated, and Annie's like, it's not over yet. And then grabs Jeff and kisses Jeff and like does it on stage in front of everybody to win the debate.
Oh yeah.
And then also kind of starts like their little bit of like, oh, that was fun. I didn't think that they could kiss, but they just did.
But they just didn't. I didn't see that coming.
It didn't get canceled
until this episode.
Yeah. That's funny.
Fun with that. But and they both grow a little bit. Jeff learns to be a little bit more like Annie, and Annie learns a little bit more like Jeff.
Exactly.
And then like Britta like gets hit with their pies by.
Oh yeah, there's the silly fun stuff.
That's fun, and Pierce gets a little bit of attention and humanized and a little bit of credit, like, oh, at least you're trying, and it did work in a way. Exactly.
And you did help.
But character growth, fun stuff. Oh, and then not to mention like Abed epitaphing and seeing every episode before and being like,
oh, that
was fun.
So
they don't really do a lot with that, which I'm okay with, but like that was a fucking fun thing to do. I wish he did a little more. It's like, Abed knows what's going to happen next week.
Exactly, that would have been a fun
Isn't
little
that
thing.
fun?
But then he's like a demigod, and like all of a sudden he's fucking Bran from Game of Thrones. I don't know.
Oh my god!
Abed's actually been controlling the show the whole time.
Fuck off.
Quick rewind.
Jamie didn't push hard enough. I'm sorry.
No, it's totally fine. One thing we forgot to talk about in episode 8, which
going back to Echo economics.
Why can't I go back? There we go. So going back to home economics, that's the return of Vaughn, where he ends up making a band with Pierce.
Oh my god!
And we get the iconic Pierce. Britta's a bee song. She's a GDB. Getting rid of Britta.
Yeah, and then Vaughn gets his revenge on Britta for like the whole. Yeah, she's a no good bee. And Pierce joins Vaughn's band, and they make a Britta kind of like diss song, and then
perform it live. It's so great.
And then Pierce seems like he stands up for Britta, so then like runs with it, and then all of a sudden
Vaughn kicks him out of the band,
and then makes a Pierce.
And then we get a
new
Pierce
song,
hate song,
even better song.
And then the end credit is Pierce with the rapper that Vaughn got to make the Pierce diss song. Pierce got that rapper to make a Vaughn diss song.
And then
Vaughn walks in.
Vaughn walks in on it.
The story? It's so fun, and there's 3 songs.
I know.
Oh my god! Season
Amazing.
1, episode 8. We already got 3 songs in one episode.
Original songs.
It only gets better, you guys.
Yes.
Had to give props where props were due on
Return
that
of
one.
Vaughn. Yeah. Comes back
God.
one more time after this, I think.
Late. So that takes us into episode 10, right? So we finished up debate. Episode 10, environmental science.
Oh yes.
Greenway.
We did this one, yeah.
Envirodale.
It's like
called Greendale.
Go back and reprint 5,000 of these.
I'm trying to save the planet.
I'm trying to save the planet here. Who wants to talk about this one?
Okay, so basically, Senior Chang is kind of in like a bad mood at the beginning of it. He seems really unhappy.
He's taking it out on everybody.
He assigns crazy amounts of work to the class just for like a little bit of lip. And the gang.
I love it. Yes.
The community group, study group, has Jeff hang out with Senior Chang to kind of like make him feel better and coerce him so that way. Hey, maybe you can get Senior Chang to ease up on us because you're so cool and you can probably get Chang to do it.
Yeah.
And then Chang decides to do it.
Jeff.
Just for Jeff. Yeah, exactly. But then Jeff is just like, well, I'm going to still hang out so that way I don't have to do the work. And the community, the study group gets mad at him.
Yeah.
Also, what is it? Pierce and... Well, no, Abed and Troy are doing their 5-0 American Tale.
Okay. So I never seen an American Tale.
Yeah.
Ashley and Stone had to get me up to date on that. I didn't know why it was called 5-0. I didn't get the song.
Yeah.
I just thought it was cute.
References
I thought
that
apparently it was some white people stuff that I missed as a child. Now that they explained it to me, though, so much more meaning in that.
It's so cute.
So we have that, and then we also have Pierce helps Shirley. Pierce helps Shirley with her presentation.
Her business, because she's trying to be a business owner, which is funny because
Season 1?
Shirley pairing doesn't seem like it makes a lot of sense, but they do it a few times, and it's actually a big part of season 2.
A big part of their relationship together and why they interact is because they both
Business
have an entrepreneurial mindset and spirit.
For sure.
Very true.
And we get this really fun montage of all the characters like fulfilling their like the goal that they finished. Like Shirley's able to present well. Troy and Abed get Fievel
back.
The whole point of their experiment is like we can get mice to react to songs, so they sing the song together, and you get the whole American
Troy
Tail
overcomes
song.
his fears and does it for Abed.
Yeah, exactly, and decides. You know, they go a little bit closer,
and then meanwhile,
their social link goes a little bit higher. And what else? Yeah.
And then Jeff basically he realizes why Chang is so upset, and it's because
his wife. Yes, that's absolutely. I was like, what was the other thing that was going on?
Yeah, so his wife had left him because he's a big asshole. So then he
Right.
basically says that he misses you and talks about that the first time that they met, they danced, and then it culminates
at
in
the
this
Envirodale
giant
dance.
Yes. At the Envirodale dance, and literally Chang and his estranged wife meet on the dance floor and do this whole dramatic dance to
Troy and Abed singing Somewhere Out There from An American Tale, but to the tune of the Green Day Irish band.
Oh my God! Yes,
booked, so it's amazing.
By the way, it's not the real
Green Day.
Yeah, I just thought I'd rip that Band-Aid off.
Oh my God!
It's so funny. So then Chang and his wife have this whole moment, and he ends up, no one has to write the essay. He takes the essay away. No more pop quiz. And it's all because of Jeff. But he's very aware of what Jeff did the whole time. Yeah. Maybe you should write an essay. What does he say? On how to...
not take advantage of others' weaknesses or something like that.
Exactly. Others' emotional vulnerabilities or something. And it's so funny.
But to be fair, Jeff also at the same time listened to Chang, spent time with him, was like, I'm going to do something for you to help you out and make you feel better. And he did do that to help solve the situation. But he also paid attention to Chang and was a real friend for him for a second.
And was
like,
there
no, I'm
going
to help you fix your relationship, which is something that was completely separate from the community study group, anything of the show. It's just something he did for another character, which was a great development. And also cements Chang as kind of like he's going to be a part of the show for a while. There's going to be arcs and stories. And
shows why Chang probably has a little connection with Jeff, too.
The secret 8th member group. Yeah, exactly. You know what? Chang and Jeff do interact a whole lot.
They do. Actually, that's a great point. So next, episode 11, the politics of human sexuality. Another great one. Yep. So this one, Annie and the Dean are putting on an STD fair to raise awareness of sexually transmitted diseases. My fave is the tagline, catch knowledge.
Catch knowledge. Or the STD fence.
Oh my God, which we'll talk about later, but it's a really good demonstration of how when Annie wants to do something, she goes all out. So she starts trying to do this STD fair. And
Pierce is going on the date with the escort.
Oh, with the escort, and he bets him that he can't get a date.
Exactly, and Jeff is like, I can get a date.
And then Jeff gets this vapid blonde girl that he can get whenever, basically the girl that Jeff gets every time to go on a date, a double date with Pierce, who ends up getting a very mature, very worldly call girl as his date.
Yeah,
I can't remember her name.
I can't remember either. But what I think is funny is the whole time these two kind of juxtaposed stories are going on. So it's Annie, Shirley, and Britta, and it's them kind of trying to help Annie through her innocence, and it's the whole point is she's never actually seen a penis.
Yeah, when she lost her virginity, she had her eyes closed.
Yeah, and it's something really sad, and it's oh no, Annie.
That's not good.
It's one of her jobs at the STD fair is to demonstrate how to put a condom on a model penis.
Guy's penis.
And she is just freaking the fuck out and basically wants to do what do they call it? They keep calling it reverse porky.
Yes.
So she can sneak in and basically look at
the model, look at the practice.
Which they end up getting caught. Yeah. Hilarity ensues.
Britta and Shirley help Annie. And that's the thing is Britta and Shirley are helping Annie break in. Britta, the anarchist, and Shirley, the Christian mother, are helping Annie, the schoolgirl, all do crazy hijinks, which is fun because it's just it's not like the girls are having it's fun little B-girl.
No, they're breaking into the dean's office.
No, we're trying to see what a dick looks like, everybody.
And then Troy and Abed are basically fighting over who's the best athlete.
Yeah.
And Troy is devastated to find out that
Abed has a natural athletic
talent. Yeah, he's actually
and he just doesn't express it. He doesn't care.
And basically
shatters Troy's world a little bit.
So basically what it culminates in, I keep using the same word, I'm half asleep and I apologize. Yeah. But what this culminates in is again, Annie advocates for herself and she's just I like being innocent. Yep. I like that this is who I am and I'll grow up when I want to, but for now, I'm happy being who I am.
Yeah, I am who I am.
What is that really?
Well, one
what
thing
else
we
comes
see
of
with
it?
Jeff on his double date with Pierce, we see that Jeff is with a juvenile person and he's not happy. Pierce is with a mature person and is the juvenile person, and Pierce is oblivious to his date and his date isn't happy. And then we have this moment where Jeff is kind of realizing you're kind of over like the young vapid, like, hi, let's go make out in the car, whatever. And he's actually kind of yearning for more out of his relationships. And he'll still have meaningless sex with people, but he wants something more. And she awoke that in him. It's like, you know you're kind of getting past this. You're getting a little old. And not like you can't do it anymore. It's like, you know you don't just want to do this anymore.
Like, you know this actually doesn't fulfill you anymore.
Because Pierce and Amanda, whatever the hell her name is, they're both children. Like, Pierce is like explaining, and we get to see like the ramifications of like, yeah, guess what? Pierce is actually a huge child. He may be the oldest, but like it's because he's paying for his toys and his play dates. Like, he doesn't have any game.
Yeah,
and like
that's a great point.
And Jeff has game, but he doesn't like. That's not what's important anymore. No, it's not to him now. At this point,
and
he's
also
in his like
he
mid-30s.
has game, but he has game for vapid, shallow chicks.
Yeah.
He actually
she
has
thought
to put
he was a
work
teacher.
In.
Yeah, exactly.
He has to actually put work in for the Slaters and for.
But they're rewarding. Like, he has this conversation with her, and he's actually like, "Wow, this is great with the call girl," and she's just like, "Yeah, well, this is what you get when you upgrade, buddy.
Yeah.
Whenever you're done playing the little leagues, there's real women out there."
Yeah.
And I think that does open him up to being with Britta, because I think at this point he's kind of turned off from Britta, being like, "Nah, it's not going to work." But like, as he's more open to like just not trying to screw the Kenders cues, then he actually is like, "Oh, I get why I like Britta, is because she is defiant, she is complex, she isn't just this like little pleasant girl like wrapped around my finger."
He likes to be challenged.
I was just
it's
gonna say
one
that.
of the best things about having an ego is reaffirming it and learning to change it.
So that takes us into episode 12.
It's comparative religion. Jeff is going to have a fight. Shirley wants to throw a Christmas party and have her family there because, she's been dealing with not having a family. This is the first time she's going to be able to have a family Christmas, and it's super important to her. And Jeff is challenging that because he's trying to stand up for Abed. So it's also like, it's this weird thing because he's trying to stand up for his family, but...
Yeah. And then at the same time, he's also standing up for his ego because he doesn't like anybody stepping to him. Exactly.
And at the same point, Shirley is also pushing her religion on everyone. So it's not like she's like doing like...
I wrote that down, I think, in my notes.
Yeah, it's not like she's like, oh, Jeff's kind of just being like, I'm like, Jeff's being selfish and using Abed to like push his own ambition. It's like, Shirley's also pushed on her. She's also kind of being a little xenophobic, a little racist, and like, it's showing off, and it's making everyone uncomfortable, not just Jeff. Annie gets put off by it. Everybody gets put off
and for everybody, this is the first Christmas episode.
So
it's December 10th.
The Christian in Shirley is pushing super, super hard.
Yeah, she's very excited.
She's being really, what's the word I'm looking for? Insensitive of other people's religions, beliefs, whatever.
Right.
And I think to Ashley's point of like, what does this accomplish? Like, they basically go through and it shows that a family has different beliefs, different ways of accomplishing stuff, and different ideas of what's important. But in the end, they all come together.
Right.
Yep,
and
they're there for each other.
They're there for each other, exactly. And as much as first Shirley is willing to like cancel the whole fucking party and be like, Jeff can't come. Once she sees the consequences of that, of like her being so rigid, and people are like, well, we're going to leave because Jeff is a part of this, and it's December 10th.
Yeah.
She ends up giving in, shows up, and fights in the fight, helps, and it turns into this big fun scene, obviously. But one note that I wrote down about the episode that I liked is in the end, it ends with Shirley compromising and making her like Christmas song that was so hardcore Christian before inclusive for everybody. And it's kind of cheesy, but it's like, it's the whole point, and it just reaffirms the whole thing that we keep talking about of like, they're a family, and and as much as she was like trying to be in this box, she's willing to bend for these people for her new family.
And it's not about any one holiday, any one creed or anything. It's about how we're all a family, and we all have our own different like patchworks and paths, but we all come together, and that's the point. That song is just like, we are all our own thing. It's not about the religion. It's about us being together. That's what this season, that's what this idea is about. It's not about who's God or what it is or who's right. It's about us all being together, appreciating each other, and being with the family that we choose.
Yeah.
Which is the thesis of the show in a lot of ways.
Exactly. Very sweet Christmas episode.
And they all bond, and they also learn to respect each other a little bit more by the end of it, and their beliefs.
Exactly, and this basically takes us into the break for the winter break for the show.
Yeah.
Because and
obviously came out
final. They all got to go to Spanish 2 with Senior Chang.
Exactly.
Yep.
And so then we have, our winter break. We come back with episode 13, Investigative Journalism, which is the second semester of Spanish.
Yes.
Season 1, second semester.
I'm going to let Ashley talk about this one because we love a guest star. We love Jack Black.
Whoa, we love Jack
Ashley
Black.
loves Jack Black.
And he is a great guest star. He plays this role so well. Oh my gosh.
Too perfect.
Yeah.
Buddy, right?
Buddy, yeah.
Yes.
The awkward character who just doesn't fit in. It's beautiful. It's chef's kiss.
Chef's kiss.
I love coming back from the break with this one because it's like Miranda said, we see them all at the end of the Christmas episode and they've all bonded, so now they're coming back, and I think they even introduced Jeff as like, oh, I haven't changed at all and I don't even want to be here, I don't care about anyone. Just kidding.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
then so they're already poking fun at that.
And they set the tone at the beginning. It's like, we went through a lot, we actually do really care about each other, and now
we're
season
back.
2.
Yep.
Exactly.
And Jeff
Part 2 of season 1.
Yeah.
Sorry. You're right.
And Jeff gets what does Jeff do this season? He's the editor, right? So he's in control of the newspaper.
He becomes the new chief editor.
Exactly. And this is very much, I think this episode shows him very much in charge of the group because everyone keeps going to him for answers about what to do about the buddy situation.
He has a real patriarchal role. It's like the daddy solver of the group and the puppeteer.
That pressure's really being put on his shoulders in this, and it's showing
And
him.
if anything, he's spending the whole episode trying to push it off.
Yep.
Exactly.
He doesn't want to deal with any of that
Exactly.
responsibility.
He's like, I never asked for this. I didn't want this.
And I like it because Jack Black's character basically is like the personification of like, you can't ignore everything and just keep putting everything off like you like to because it's easy and it's...
Because then you have a dude who kicks you in the face and gives you a bloody nose.
Oh my god,
cool.
yeah. So this whole time he's trying to insert himself in the group. And
it turns out he's been in the class the whole time.
Oh yeah, he's been in the background.
The
and
camera just hasn't been paying
him.
attention to him, but like he's been interacting and just no one's like, oh, wait, who? Because he's forgettable and because he has no friends and because he's such a try hard and he's like...
Yep.
He is, like, he could describe himself like the Paul Blart Mall Cart, like, funny, damn it.
Paul Blart
Marl Cop. And he's like he's funny, he's kind of the chubby dude, he's not the best looking dude, he really wants to be in a group of friends, he has a lot of personality, and he isn't even like held within himself.
But the point that I think that like his character serves in this episode is what they established at the very beginning, which is one of the best jokes in the show, where it's like, I know you're afraid that having me here is going to disrupt your whole and then they go straight into the intro.
Yeah.
It's kind of showing like the dynamic that they've created, and I think it's the beginning of like this. They're kind of they're the mean clique.
Exactly.
They're this group that everybody wants to be a part of, and that they kind of feel like they're cooler than people. And then it's like, oh,
they're
if
the
we're
main
gonna let
characters,
people, exactly. If we're gonna let people, are we just letting anyone into our group? Any freewheeling? What does Annie say?
Oh,
She's so mean.
I know, yep.
And so basically, the point that he serves is kind of showing that like we said, they kind of establish going on that they're the main characters of this show and trying to throw somebody else into it. It disrupts this whole rhythm and flow that they've kind of worked so hard to establish over the first half of the season.
Yeah.
Again, there are way more of these funny, not filler, but more filler type episodes in the first season.
Yep, with guest stars especially.
Guest stars
too,
and
like,
having a lot of room for fun.
Mm-hmm.
So true. Season 1, episode 14, Interpretive Dance.
Oh, yeah, so this is when they find out Jeff has been dating Slater.
Yep.
So that's very interesting because it's kind
happens
of...
in the background.
Yeah, and it kind of, you're set up and you don't think that Jeff is really going to end up dating anyone.
Yep.
So it's very interesting that they, like you said, it's kind of in the background and it just happens.
And
then,
like, exactly. And then all of a sudden it's like, what? You guys have been hooking up for what? How long? And,
Yeah, you're kind of at the same pace as the study group.
Actually, that's a great point. Yeah. We find out in the same episode that they do, and within a few minutes of the episode starting, the whole study group basically finds out
and they have to own up to it, and Britta kind of has to own up at the end when her and Troy are doing their performance, because they're both taking interpretive dance together. Britta has to kind of own up to the fact that she might have some feelings or something there for Jeff when she sees him with Slater, because she gets
She enjoyed that he vied for her.
Oh yeah, because who doesn't love attention?
Yeah, who doesn't want to be like, oh yeah, this
me?
guy's trying hard to fuck me.
Especially the object of Jeff Winger's attention.
Oh my God.
Obviously I get it.
Sign me up. So not having, and knowing that you're not going to have that anymore because he's in a relationship, that puts Britta in a tough spot, and it's really cool to see Troy be the one who's there for her and to save her from that situation and to be that like place of comfort and a safe space for her.
Exactly.
This is the first time these two really intersect.
Exactly, and that is such a sweet moment when they do their little dance.
Exactly, and I think it establishes kind of the connection that they have, where it's like Troy appreciates that like Britta has an open mind and wants to have different ideas of what men can be, that they don't have to have this toxic masculinity, that they can be loved and accepted for all these other things that they are, and kind of brings that out in Troy and makes him more comfortable kind of letting his freak flag fly, I feel like. And like you said, she's also forced to deal with the fact that she obviously has some feelings for Jeff, and that comes together in Troy basically rescuing her on stage and helping her kind of push through that.
Yeah.
But at the end, she really is faced with that, with the reality of, oh no, they're together. Slater and Jeff end up telling the dean about it. They have to sign paperwork about it.
Jeff matures a little bit and decides to commit to a relationship.
To be in a relationship.
Like old skip BS. He's just like, I'm afraid of commitment. Blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
And she calls him out, being like, "That's BS. If like we've been together,
and
we
having
like each
sex
other.
consistently,
It's great. Like
we're
you
dating.
either want to be together or we're done.
Exactly.
Like we either work or we don't. Like I'm not gonna play the middle
And
ground."
he was willing to be like, you know what? Yeah, I'm gonna put myself out
I'm
there.
gonna try.
And I don't think he would have been able to have that relationship and that establishment with somebody else if he didn't build that with the group first.
Absolutely.
To be able to compromise and
And
put
realize
it
he
on
could be
themselves.
vulnerable like that with someone. Yeah, I love that. That's so true.
And it basically ends with Britta being like, oh, you guys are actually serious. This is a reality now, and now I feel a certain way about it.
Yeah.
And takes us into episode 15, romantic expressionism. Things start getting a little bit saucier here, heated up relationship-wise.
Yeah.
One thing that we kind of see persist throughout the rest of the season, a little bit into next season, is like Britta and Jeff are paired up kind of like the parents.
Yeah.
Annie is this younger kid that they're looking out for,
Right.
and she feels like she needs to ask permission for everything. She starts having feelings for Vaughn.
Right.
And
Well, they notice her like interacting with
flirting
Vaughn,
with
and
him,
then they're
and him
both kind
flirting
of
with
just like.
her.
They're both like, we have to make sure that like her
Yeah.
first like love or first boyfriend isn't this, because it'll open up the door to a bunch of
And they
open up a door to
basically just
Starburns, basically.
Insert themselves into her life
Yeah.
and
For
start
permission.
meddling.
Making
Exactly.
decisions and assumptions for her.
Yeah, and basically just turn her whole potential relationship upside down by
Before it even starts.
exactly just because they're so controlling and
Yeah.
because they have to have things their way, but they don't see it that way.
And Britta's a little butthurt, so she doesn't want it to happen just because, Britta
She
got
doesn't want
dumped by
Annie.
Vaughn.
Yeah, she doesn't want Annie dating Vaughn. I
Yeah.
mean, it shows she's human, and they both team up to kind of
Mhm.
feed into each other's negative qualities. Pierce feels left out of Troy and Abed's movie night.
Oh, that's when they.
But yeah, that's when they start doing like the wasn't it Kick Puncher? Or
Yep,
Yeah,
Kick
when they
Puncher
watch
movies
Kick Puncher
at
and they make
Abed's
fun of it.
dorm.
Mhm.
They
Yeah.
invite Shirley and Chang
And
to watch
Chang.
the movies.
And Pierce
Yep.
sucks at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Pierce
And
is
everybody's
terrible.
fun and is having chemistry, and it's just, again, it's another representation of like
The
Pierce
old-
being the old guy who can't keep up, and he's kind of he tries so hard that he forces himself out, and if
Yeah.
he was just natural, everybody would have a good
Yeah.
time. And he's just the ultimate tryhard, so much so
He's
that
doing
he
stuff that
hires
makes him
people
uncomfortable, and it's not authentic, and it's just
Yep.
like it
Exactly.
shows, dude. We get that
Yeah.
you don't get like watching a movie to like rag it. You're from a generation where you watched a movie because you wanted to watch it, and if you didn't
Yeah.
like it, you just didn't talk about it anymore.
Yeah, and this one basically ends, both of the storylines end with like, the theme is basically like, let people be themselves. Like, people just
Yeah.
need to be themselves. Like, when
And be
when
authentic.
yeah, exactly. When Pierce just falls in front of everybody, they all laugh because that's who Pierce
That's
is.
Yeah.
And Annie is like, let me like who I like. Why did you try to send Troy after me? One of my favorite
When I
jokes
finally
is
got out over that.
exactly. And then Troy's all mad because he was like, you turned her into another hottie that will never get with me.
Hilarious.
And they see that it's like, oh shit, maybe we don't know what's best for everybody,
Yeah.
and maybe we're assholes just like everybody
Yeah,
else.
we're
Exactly.
just meddling like dicks.
Yep, and getting involved where we don't need to be getting involved because it makes
Exactly.
us feel good and feel like we're doing something for someone else
We have
when no
control
one
over
asked
our
us to
life.
do that shit. Exactly.
Exactly, and in a way that's almost more selfish, and I really appreciate Annie being like, I have good taste, like I'm actually really invested in my life, and I'm trying to do good by myself, so give me that space.
Yeah.
And I think that's important because I think it's one of the first times that it's like, Annie stands up for herself all the way up until this point, but this is the first time that she's like, you guys aren't my parents.
Yeah.
Yep.
And like, I want to be an adult, and I
Yeah.
want to make my own choices.
Yeah.
And they finally were like, oh, okay, Annie, I guess you don't want us to like basically parent you through this,
Exactly.
which is what they thought that she
That she
wanted.
wanted.
Exactly. She tells him, like, I don't go through my life through the motions like you do, Britta and Jeff. I plan
Yeah.
stuff out. So if I'm with
She's like,
Vaughn,
"You're
it's
not
not
my
because I'm a
mom."
dumb kid. Like,
It's because I thought
I'm
about it.
smart enough. I know I'm
Yeah.
making my choices and I'm making a smart
Yeah.
choice. It's not because, like, I'm dumb. You're complicated. You know?
Exactly, but they're so concerned that they're right that they
Mhm.
basically write their own
And
narrative.
they're making decisions that they would make that Annie wouldn't. Because they're
Yeah.
different people.
That's
they can't
very
make
true.
decisions for someone else. They're
Yeah.
different.
That's so true. So we're getting closer, more and more of the overall tension that's building over the entire series is starting to heat up a little bit more now. So episode 16, communication studies. So this also surrounds around Valentine's Day.
Yep.
It's a Valentine's right, and it's like from the very beginning. It's like even their Greendale human being, which is the mascot for the school, is even walking around with arrows and everybody, and he even has like a mate. And it basically just highlights how isolated Valentine's Day makes everybody feel and how crazy it makes everybody act. So basically it's like Britta drunk dials Jeff and
BCI
booty call. What is it? Booty call implication. Exactly. I'll let you take this one over. I feel like.
So Britta calls Jeff in the middle of the night and leaves a voicemail just basically implicating like that, like she's thinking about him and she's drunk, and maybe if she was a little drunk or in a different situation, she probably would have called him. And like if Jeff would have picked up and like, what are you doing? You want to hang out? And like slept with him.
So there's all this implication there.
It was all of a sudden what seemed like a really hard task was like a real slippery slope. And then Jeff gains all this power over Britta because Britta's so embarrassed.
Yeah, exactly.
Because Britta didn't remember that happens. Now Britta's acting weird. Her like balance with the group is totally off because, like as Abed explains to Jeff, like because Jeff has this power, it's like he saw her naked, and the only thing that he can do now is let her see him naked, and they try to.
And it's really, to be fair though, he's right. Emotionally, she's bare, and he needs to do the same thing for her.
Bare, and so they try to create a situation where
he's gonna drunk dial her back,
and they get drunk and have fun and blah 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 blah. But it culminates when that happens, and then Britta shows up at this party at this Valentine's dance, where Jeff is still dating Slater, and Jeff is going to go. Are they still dating, or are they broken up?
No, they were still dating, but then what ends up happening is when Abed basically ends up drinking with Jeff to help him get into character, so he can make an authentic call to Britta. He calls Britta, but he also calls Slater. He shows up at school the next day. Not remembering the call that he made before, and Slater's done with him. No, Slater's mad. She's like, oh, you called me last night, but you got upset because you said, when you realized that I wasn't Britta.
Yeah, so Jeff's trying to fix his relationship, and then Britta shows up, and it just shows that, like, she's back in, like, a position of, like, things are normal. She doesn't feel like she's weird or in a weird position, so, like, everything's back to normal at the end. But then Jeff and Britta kind of get, like, their love kind of gets a little reignited, and it kind of shows that there is still an interest there. It's not total, that door isn't completely closed, because there are times where Britta, like, there are times where it looked like Britta and Jeff probably could have literally just left, and like some of the scenes they shot, like they could have actually started the relationship at that point.
But that's the thing, Jeff is actually committed to being different and being with Slater, and he's like, she's like actually a really good thing that happened to me, and so Britta goes to bat for Jeff and is like, he actually was supposed to call you, and he said how much he cares about you, this, that, and the other.
For him.
And it kind of takes us on this path of, okay, like, maybe Jeff and Britta won't get together, and now maybe Jeff's going to settle down, and he's going to have a serious relationship. Which takes us into episode, I think we're going to move on to episode 17, physical education. Ashley, I'll let you do this one.
The only thing is like, Troy and Pierce lie about getting Valentine's, and then Senior Chang embarrasses them, and then Annie and
finds
Shirley
out,
try to help, and they make it worse, and it just ends up with Donald Glover inside a hot blue, a royal blue woman's pantsuit, twerking on Senior Chang in like a hot pink one, dancing on Senior Chang. And that's just something
Chang
to enjoy.
Forces them to go to the dance.
Elegant ladies' pantsuits.
And they prove that they're good guys at their heart, because even though Pierce can be a jerk and Troy can be a little dense, they're like,
they both decide that it's the
Annie and
greater
Shirley
good.
Fess up and say, we're sorry, we're your sister because of us.
Well, like Troy says, he was like, the whole time we were upset that we didn't have ladies who cared about us, and it turns out we do.
We did. So they
fun little story.
Out there.
On Valentine's Day, maybe it's not about like love as like I'm in love and we're having sex and so passionate, but it's like friendship love. Like you can have Valentine's Day where it's like we all love each other. We're here for each other, because that it's just as valid and just as important. There isn't any more special love just because it's romantic love. It's just different love.
That's really
friendship
sweet.
Love matters just as much. To help the people who feel lonely understand that they always do have
somebody. They do have somebody who cares about them. Exactly. So physical education. This is a fun one because we get to see the first time that Jeff is like, no, my ego matters so much, and I want to look cool all the time. And not looking cool is a huge insecurity for me.
Absolutely. It
matters.
So basically, he joins his billiards class because he just wants to look like a badass
coolest
playing
sport.
pool.
Get a credit playing billiards.
And
come on.
Basically, he gets called out and saying, well, if you want to play pool, you have to wear shorts,
Uh-huh.
and he's
uniform.
willing to drop the class over this because he wants to look
Cool.
So
while
bad. He
plays
shows
pool.
up in a leather jacket. He's got this whole getup.
He's even good at pool.
Exactly. And they're like, yeah, but to be able to pass my class, you have to wear what everyone else is doing and be just like everyone else. And Jeff doesn't want to do that.
I wear a PE uniform. Sorry, dude.
Yep.
Ovid tries to woo potential maple green.
Oh, yeah, that's when they have white Ovid. It's a funny little B story to Jeff's like ego being challenged. It's really funny to see them.
It's actually a great Ovid story.
Yeah.
Storyline.
Yeah.
Because I feel like sometimes with like relationships and Abed and like Abed like dating people think he's at a disadvantage or like no, he needs help. Otherwise,
Yeah, that's the thing. Everybody's so worried that Ovid's going to be alone forever, and then it basically...
then we learned that Abed has complete and total confidence within himself.
It's actually a great
That's
episode.
why he is the way he is.
Yep.
He basically... it's a great learning moment, I think, for the whole group.
Exactly. And
Right?
for the audience,
Yeah.
too, because
Yeah,
I feel
yeah,
like
yeah.
the audience
We
learns
don't
that
need
about
to pity these
Abed.
people. We don't need to treat them any different. They've
Yeah.
got just as much game, if not more, than you know.
Mhm.
And not only that, it's like some of the things that we necessarily see as like a weakness,
Mhm.
it's actually Abed's greatest strength. He's like, I have confidence falling out of my butt.
Exactly. I
It's like
love
he
that line.
doesn't get embarrassed. He's not worried about what people think,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and therefore it's not something that holds him back.
Exactly.
And it's something that I think is a teachable moment for everybody because they're all so concerned with it that they don't
Yes.
see that Abed's superpower is not caring
Yep.
Yeah.
and is being fully himself.
Yes.
And people are drawn to that.
Exactly.
And it's
They love
so
that about
fun.
him.
It's a great episode, and I think it's interesting that that happens at the same time that Jeff is battling his ego
Yep.
so hard, and
Mhm.
finally it culminates in I'm willing to. The coolest thing I can do is show that I'm the best at this,
Mhm.
and I'm going to do it by any means necessary.
Exactly.
And actually doesn't let him and his ego hold himself
Doesn't
back.
let
from something.
shallow things like hold back his true greatness and his true
Yeah.
talent. Like he's
Yeah,
not like
Exactly.
he wants to look cool, and it's so important to. But at a certain point, it's more important to him to prove like a greater point than something that's just like I want to wear cool clothes. It's like
Yep.
no, I want to prove that I can compete
Yeah.
just as well, and that this rule is a weird hang up,
Mhm.
and that this rule can exist, but not for the reason you're talking about.
Yeah.
Because even Jeff learns to move on from his shallow reason, and like they both grow, and it is cool. I think it is a good like, I guess I'll call it A2 story. Because it's like Jeff learns not to like step on other people's ego and to challenge people, and then like when he like comes back into the Abed story, he like is like in perfect synchronicity with it because he's like, yeah, and I'm not going to be weird and try to change Abed. I know him. Why don't
Yeah.
you go to him?
Yeah.
And so then
Yeah.
Jeff learns kind of like a lesson that affects the Abed story after the fact from the lesson he was taking. Like,
Yeah.
it shows that there's just like this like weird interwoven narrative of how it can all work together and how you can learn how lessons from one story can affect another too.
Yep.
And it's one thing that we've talked about in the series, or talking about the series as well, is that they do a really good job of kind of weaving together
Oh,
all
yeah.
the stories at the end where
I love it.
they come together in a
Yeah, they
really
mesh
like
well.
satisfying
Mhm.
way.
Yeah.
They're really good
Um,
at that.
So next is episode 18, Basic Genealogy, Family Day at Greendale Community College.
It's a good
Fun one.
It is a good one. We get, again, just
Little bit of world
more
building.
look into world building,
Yeah.
look into everybody's backstories, including side characters. Starburns has a son.
Yeah. Junior
Chang's
Chang and his
brother is a Jewish rabbi.
Yeah,
that is
rabbi.
awesome. Yeah.
And then they make mention, it's like, why do they still think that you're a Spanish teacher? And he's like, cut it out. So we
He's like,
kind of
"Spanish
learned that
teacher,
he's,
man,
yeah,
This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yep.
that he's kind of lying.
So they reference something that will come up in an episode or
A
two, I
little,
think.
bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Shirley and Abed have some interaction through
They
their
have-
families.
yep,
We get to
Sweet
meet
moment.
Abed's dad again, and he's here for another episode.
And like some of his other
And
extended family
his cousin
members.
Abra. That's really it. And then Shirley and her kids.
hmm
Jeff doesn't bring anyone because everyone's my
Everyone's
family.
his family.
Britta doesn't
Oh,
bring
duh!
anyone.
And then the whole A story is that he's trying
Jeff
to get
and
it.
Pierce, yeah.
Pierce's
Pierce's
stepdaughter.
Yeah.
And basically, see, this is what I like is like some of the episodes are really, really heavy. We have a lot to talk about. This one is a fun one. There's
Mhm.
still things that are established,
Funny
but it's
jokes.
a little bit simpler. And it's
Yeah.
basically just that like Jeff does what he always does and tries to take advantage. Oh, one thing we do need to mention at the beginning of this episode, he's dumped.
Yeah.
Professor
Joe
Slater dumps
dumps
him.
Actually,
dumps
big
him off
moment
the
at the
bat,
beginning of the
yeah.
episode.
And
yeah.
he tries to pretend that it doesn't bother him and it
he's
doesn't affect
cool
him.
the whole time,
And
yeah.
it obviously very much does. So he tries to rebound in typical Jeff Winger fashion.
Right.
I'll be back.
And
With
of
booty.
course, with booty, the booty nader.
Yeah.
And then he starts, trying to go after Pierce's stepdaughter.
Right.
And then basically through learning that she's a horrible person
And a
who's using
grifter.
Pierce and a grifter, he basically is just like, you know what, he's like, I care about my friends enough to know that this isn't right. And again, I'm willing to choose them over my selfish
Yeah,
desires.
exactly.
And that's basically what it comes down to. So that's the biggest lesson that's learned in the A storyline.
Yeah, Britta and Troy do like the Nana story thing,
Oh,
which is a bunch of
which
fun
is
jokes,
hilarious.
but nothing.
Because she's always, but but it does reestablish some things. Britta is always trying to be like, respect, she's always trying to be like the righteous one. You should respect your elders. And then that culminates in she bangs so hard for it that she finds a switch to let Troy's grandma beat her ass with.
Yeah, exactly.
Britta, I don't understand you.
And he's crying while he watches her cry, get spanked by his grandma, and it's so weird.
She's willing to bang and go so hard for her point and for what she's trying to prove. She'll literally get her ass beaten by a grandma that she doesn't even know.
She will suffer to her last breath to prove her point. And we see this multiple times throughout the series. We'll talk about it in many more episodes. But this is just one of the first times that we see that it's like, God damn it, Britta, just admit you were wrong.
Exactly.
And she's like, no.
That's all you have to do. That's all you have to do.
And it's from something as small as like getting Nana a switch all the way through Sophie B. Hawkins. Which we'll get there when we get there.
Oh man!
So that's basic genealogy. Again, there's a lot more room for fun.
Yeah,
in
Jeff
the first
learns
season.
to holster it and because he's willing to do whatever he wants, and he kind of isn't afraid to hurt. He doesn't want to hurt people when he's trying to get what he wants, but he doesn't care if he hurts Pierce. So he feels like he's right to go after his daughter. But he learns to holster it, and that it's more important to not be it's more important to be a good friend to Pierce than to get what you want and to be another person that you use him, just like his daughter was, like you were saying.
Yeah, and I think being faced with her using his friend and him trying to hook up with her, he's kind of faced with the reality of a lot of his own decisions, and he's just like, I actually can't do this anymore. So that takes us. Episode 19. Day bow. Beginner pottery. We get to meet Jeff's foil, Rick.
Yes.
Love him.
We get to see a lot about Jeff's mindset of how he is, the way he acts, why he carries himself the way he is, how he was raised, and then the problem with being raised like that, and then met with someone who is got all the talent as you, but actually applies himself. Yeah. And how it's it's like seeing a world where it's if, as weird as it sounds, is I could have been president if I tried, and I thought I didn't try and I didn't care, but it turns out if I tried, I could have been so much a doctor who's taking pottery classes just for fun.
And Jeff basically spends the whole episode trying to discredit this guy because he actually can't handle.
It invalidates Jeff's way of thought in life.
Exactly.
It proves that, if you do try, you'll have a better life and people will like you more than just
because
cool.
it starts out with Jeff trying to find yet another blow-off class.
Exactly.
Where you get
participation. He found the ultimate one.
Yep. Exactly. And all of that comes together, and basically he can't handle not being the best at everything.
Exactly.
And he's confronted with that you are normal, you are average, you're going to be good at some things, you're going to be bad at most things, and that's being a human.
Exactly.
Yeah. And he has that moment of catharsis where he figures that out because his mom obviously told him that he was the most special little boy in the world, and he believed it.
And then the B storyline is this one is the sailing class that the rest of the group takes. So this is Shirley, Troy, and Pierce and Britta. Exactly, on the ship. And again, this is another one of the fun ones. It's team building for the other characters. Shirley gets a chance to shine and be a captain.
Yeah, I love that.
And again, it's one thing that I like, and we've talked about it. There may be filler episodes, but there's a point to all of them. Yeah. Basically, in this whole story, Pierce is an idiot. He gets himself thrown off the boat.
Constantly
failing. She has to leave him behind in open water because he's going to cause them to all fail.
Exactly.
And eventually, Shirley decides to be a captain, step into that role of being a leader and saying, now I'm going to go back, and as a leader doesn't leave behind her friend. It goes back for Pierce.
Save my crew.
Exactly.
At the cost of her grade.
Exactly. And in doing that, she ends up getting a better grade.
Yeah.
But basically, it's it just keeps furthering the same idea of what you do for your family, what you do for the people you care about.
Yeah, and we learn more about Pierce's persistence when he talks about he's never had good luck. He's always that really good story about how he was born with upside down with the umbilical cord around his neck 3 times, and he's it's always been a struggle, but I'm not going to let that stop me.
Yeah, it's actually really sweet.
One of my favorite lines in all of TV is good luck, Pierce. He's don't need it, never had it. And I'm just I maybe know I like Miranda because Miranda has really bad luck.
Yeah.
So I knew that she would connect with that because there's a character who's listen, I'm trying, and I get punched in the face, I get kicked off the boat, my friends leave me behind, but I am not going to let them keep me down. You're going to have to put me down because I'm going to get back up. Yep. Even though Pierce is a jerk, he does believe in that. I'm going to pull myself up and keep trying.
Absolutely.
Because what else does he have?
And you know what? He basically never gives up on that. And that's one thing I do really respect about him.
He has indomitable will. He's an asshole. He's the wrong person to have it. But
but he has it.
Yeah.
He for sure has it. And I think it's something that all the characters learn a little bit from.
Yeah.
I do.
And we see, Jeff gains a little bit of humanity, and there's like, he doesn't need the best, he doesn't need the coolest.
Yeah.
He can live without being the apex alpha dog. And we get a little treat showing that, like, Rick is... Like,
Rick is actually tormented.
the reason the way he is
broken up
because
too.
he was told how little he is, and he's trying to prove himself constantly. So we even get to see, like, listen, I bet there's been this room where, like, you went in a room and there was cooler Miranda, who's just like Miranda, except popular and funnier, and everyone likes her and gets to...
her name was Elda. Don't worry, I didn't know who she was.
Exactly. And like you always think like you only see her from your perspective. We get just a little thing of like the reason why Elda is the way she is maybe because of some of this crazy fucked up shit that you don't even understand.
Yeah.
So you get this thing of like everybody is
That's
different. We just grew up different. And we're the result of different upbringings and different pasts.
And we never really know what somebody else is going through, what their struggles like. It's a really layered episode, even though it's kind of like set up as like funny,
very funny,
hijinksy and kind of silly. But it's like that's actually a great point and a great message. Which again is a big reason why we all love the show.
Yeah.
So episode 20, The Science of Illusion. It's April Fool's Day. And
Where is it?
oh gosh, and so
they're trying to dumb little prank.
Yep, which I think this is the birth of Britta-ing things, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because they're all making fun of her for being a buzzkill, and she's a fun vampire. Like everything she does, exactly. Yeah. So they're all making fun of her. So Britta goes out of her way to try to pull this elaborate prank that's really not funny.
No.
It's just like funny to her.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not even a prank. Like,
right? That's
really
what I think. It's just not even a prank. It's like what are you doing?
What are you trying to accomplish? But she goes again, like Miranda was saying earlier. She goes so hard for what she's doing. She goes and she tries to accomplish this thing, and then just fucks the situation up entirely.
Absolutely ruins it so much so that Annie and Shirley have to drum up an investigation as to who doesn't. Basically,
a body flies out of a window.
Right, she's in the morgue, and there's like a body by the window, and she drops the frog, pops into it, and it flies out a window.
And it's so funny, and she
ha ha ha.
And then
a dead body's on the morgue,
Shirley
and that's
and
Britta.
She
wants to do a little joke.
And
there's a dead body on the patio.
Oh, yeah. Knock, knock, who's there? Cancer? Oh, no, it's just Britta.
And Britta gets confronted with, like she feels like, no, I am the buzzkill. I feel like nothing's happening and nothing's wrong. And, like, the group kind of, like, comes in and is like, listen, we're not going to say that you're not, but we love you for it. We love what you bring for it.
What you bring
you're the
to
dark
table.
Blue cloud that brings us together. Like, you're one of the big reasons why we're all here. And we're not going to just be like, oh, Britta ruins everything. You bring a lot. It's just you also bring
and in
your Britta-ness too.
It's some of the funnest aspects that she brings to
absolutely. She's kind of like she's like chaotically ignorant in a way she doesn't
they can all rely on her for that. She can't even say bagel right. She says bagel.
Yes.
She messes everything up.
It's kind of the only thing you can rely on. In the video game episode, Jeff gambles on Britta messing something up in order for them to get through the episode.
Yeah,
exactly.
I love this. Yeah, and then I love it because everyone has... I think this is a really cool episode because everyone has that moment in the end when Britta is, saying, oh yeah, I messed everything up. I'm the buzzkill. Yeah. But everyone has been trying so hard to prove themselves and prove how cool they are. Yeah. So like the end is everyone is just hugging and crying because they're just like, I was trying to impress you for this, and I was trying to impress you for this, and I was doing this for you, and it's like, oh my god,
we're all trying.
to
we're all
impress
nervous.
each other. Yeah.
We all want to be friends.
Exactly.
We don't know what we're doing.
We all want to be accepted by each other. And it's actually a really sweet moment.
It really is. Through Britta's Britta-ing, we get to have an actual moment of vulnerability with everyone.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Exactly. And I think
Cookie
a lot
Crisp
of times...
Monster, funny joke. Yeah, taking advantage of Pierce. Jeff Britta. With Troy and Jeff and Pierce, which is, I think, the B story for that one.
Yeah, basically with his Laser Lotus
theology,
which is his weird, scammy religion.
Yeah.
And, so... Jeff and Troy obviously capitalize on that and get him to dress all silly. Yeah, that's they do their buddy cop thing. But then we explore more about them that like they all feel that like it's like what Ashley said at the very end where they're all talking about it. The reason that they're both fighting to be badass is because they both feel pigeonholed. They both feel like they have more to offer and they don't always get the opportunity to show it.
Yeah.
And again, it's just a place where you can air those things out in a safe place. It's with your family, you know? And your family, I believe, gives you a space to be more than what everybody else expects you to be.
Yeah.
And I think that's one really fun part of the group, that they all get to explore these different sides of themselves with each other.
Yeah, absolutely.
which takes us into episode 21, Contemporary American Poultry.
Is this like one of the first homage episodes?
I was just about to say that.
Yes,
You're so right in that. So
we get a mafia movie style kind of homage going, where basically the issue is that the chicken tenders are the best thing at Greendale, and they always run out, and the group always manages to run out because it turns out the guy making the chicken tenders, Starburns, is giving them like out the back door to his friends and everything, so that there's never enough for the group to actually get some and make it.
Yeah, exactly.
So through Jeff's manipulation, and this is the thing, is Jeff is like, I'm the manipulating, conniving boss. I'll get the situation going.
I'm the one who set all this up.
I'll be the Don boss. I'll set it all up, and it all be thanks to me. So that way, when it's running, I just kick back. My job is I got it started, and you can all thank me every time you have chicken tenders. So then he sets it up. He basically manipulates it. Abed works at a philosophical stand with his dad. So it's like, well, Abed, you know how to fry cook. Why don't you become the new chicken fingers person? Hijinks ensue.
He inserts himself and
exactly.
inserts Abed
into this. It's a really
this.
good mafia motif. They manipulate it. They get Abed inside the chicken finger place, and then they run the school. Now they have access to the chicken fingers. They control who it goes to, and basically they get first picked everything.
And so basically they use it as a big
Bargaining
allegorical tool basically.
Yeah.
That basically, they run the school.
Yeah.
They run the school because they have access to the chicken. They have power over who gets chicken. Abed ends up becoming this like
Don
puppet
boss,
master. Yeah, he's a Don boss because he's basically getting everybody to exchange goods and services to have access to chicken fingers. Exactly.
And Jeff only cared about getting chicken fingers, so he sets up this situation, and then he gets upset that
creates
this monster he creates gets out of control.
Yep, because he doesn't.
He's like, I just wanted chicken fingers and be told I'm the boss.
And he's upset now because nobody needs him.
Yeah.
And we realize how much Jeff needs to be needed.
Needed by people,
Just like Pierce, by the way.
Exactly, that's a great point. He always reluctantly accepts the leader role, but then when he doesn't have it, he hates it.
He's floundering.
Yeah, he doesn't know what to do without it. And when it's Abed that has it,
he feels incredibly threatened.
That bothers him even more that it's Abed. Because he's like, who's this TV character and he's running all these people's lives. And it's like, but he's almost
I thought
like
I was
Dennis
manipulating him. Exactly.
So so then that's the thing. And then we learn how smart Abed really is. He creates this whole situation, and then we see that he values himself. The group gets carried away, just like they would in a mob boss movie.
Yeah.
He's giving him all these things that they're asking for, and they just keep asking for more and more.
Right.
And he wants to get back at them because they're becoming ungrateful.
Yeah.
So then he slowly... he basically gets back at every single
examples
one of them.
Yeah.
And this is one of the things that I think gets established here in the series that starts to get followed through. Although we meet other characters before and there's some running jokes, I think this is the first time that we see that there are consequences to the actions in the story that persist far beyond just this episode.
Right.
So to get back at Troy, Abed lets out his monkey, Annie's boobs.
Yeah.
That's the monkey that lives at the vents all the way through season 2 and 3.
Three.
Through through the whole gassing episode. So, but that's established in this episode,
you know? We were first introduced to Annie's boobs here.
Exactly.
Hot. It's a monkey.
And that's basically it. And so
it culminates with Jeff and Abed kind of having like a real frank adult conversation about like power and their roles in power and like how that works and how they feel like they're used and like being needed, and they kind of both end up deciding that like this role that they find themselves in,
have the power.
Neither of them should have that power, and they just end up giving it away, and just
another mob boss takes in or moves in, and the group is brought closer together because again they pick each other over the things that tear them apart.
Power and all the things that they want.
So
because everyone gets a little gross this episode. There's no one who's there's no good like Shirley being like, I won't refuse. Everyone's pretty bad.
Yep, everyone.
Because power is intoxicating. Doesn't matter who you are.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
that's a huge point of the episode. That's why Jeff is drunk on it. So
and then he loses it, and then he goes even crazier.
Alcohol sickness when Abed has it. He's like, I need power.
I gotta have.
And he lashes out and he shows his ugliest side in order to get what he wants.
So we're coming up on it.
I know.
We're on episode 22.
I love this
The Art of Discourse. This is a good one. I'm going to let you talk about this one.
I like this one a lot because this is Jeff and Britta. They're antagonized by these teenagers that are just visiting this community college.
High achievers who are getting extra credits, like college credits while they're in high school.
Yep, and Jeff is riding high because he just got a really good grade on a test, and these kids make fun of them, and Jeff and Britta can't handle it.
Like, very in their face, like, just call them out and make fun of them, and then they're like,
Because
the
they
issue
actually
of, like,
can't deal with it.
they're
their
children
egos.
and we're adults, and even if I wanted to, I can't attack or do anything to
And
them.
also,
Right.
but they're met with this new kind of, because like these young kids like that just nothing bothers them.
Nope.
They just
They
turn
have
everything
no-
on their
yeah.
head.
Exactly. These
And it was
children.
like, what do they do when it's like it's impenetrable?
Yeah.
Yep.
Then all of a sudden they're
can't
on the
logic
receiving
it.
end, and it shows how much they can't handle
Yep.
being on the receiving end.
Yep.
And they're always the biggest shit stirrers,
Oh,
but they
absolutely.
actually can't handle it when people do it to them.
Yep.
Which
And
I
that's
think
why
is
they
fun to
go.
watch.
They go crazy this episode trying
Literally.
to get back at them.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Where they're in like a war at the end of it, and they're like sitting in chairs slumped over because they won't give in, and they're just like going duh at each other, and it's just ridiculous. But you see them spiral this whole time, and what isn't it Abed who said they have the most fragile egos of the group?
You read
Yeah.
my
And
mind.
that's exactly it, because they genuinely can't handle being like called
not
out
liked and made fun of,
Yeah.
basically, by
By these
people that they
kids.
see are
lesser.
Lesser
lower,
than.
Exactly, because they're
younger,
adults and they're
anything.
supposed to have their lives figured out, and they're here at this community college that these high school kids are at in their 30s.
exactly. And that's why when that kid said, he's like, oh, if I'm celebrating my good grade, just kill me
Yep.
when I'm 30 or whatever. And,
And then
it's
Jeff
like,
goes and takes that out on Pierce
oh my god, you're so right.
because it really does get to him.
Yeah, it does.
And that's the thing. I think that's the big thing is, like, they don't address that until they have to, like, they're met head on with these kids, and it's just like, yeah, no, this is just, this is how petty you are. This is how much it actually bothers you, and you wish it didn't, but it does.
But it does
Yeah.
a lot.
And then I think the group has to choose between Pierce and Shirley, right?
Yes, that's
Yeah.
another big story. This one,
You're
yeah,
so
'cause,
right. Oh
Pierce
my god.
cancels Shirley like a dick.
That's right. Jesus Christ.
Because
And
he's
like, Pierce, you went way too
completely
far. It's not funny.
insensitive and tone deaf
Mhm.
of the situation, and
Mhm.
just and I think that one is just, it's all about creating tension, but basically it's just like they bring up a good point that I think that they run with more in season 2, and it's like Pierce is kind of an insensitive asshole
Yeah.
who doesn't take care about other people
Lashes
and
out
only
for attention.
exactly. And so now when he's being called on it, it's like, okay, well, no, why is he even here? Why do we even want him in
Yeah.
the group? And having to pick between Shirley and Pierce, I think is really interesting, because we see that they both offer something really important to the group, and if either of them were to leave, a dynamic would really be lost.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Which is why it's not that easy for them to just kick out
Pick
Pierce.
up and leave. Yep.
There's an ecosystem and a balance, and Pierce is a part of it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
They call him the scapegoat.
And then meanwhile, I would say the C story is
Oh,
Abed
so funny.
is obsessed with it.
College cliches.
A
Mhm.
quintessential
Checklist.
college list, all the
Mhm.
things
Yeah.
that happen in all of the movies, like Van Wilder and all that
Mhm.
stuff. And he basically does one thing that I like that Abed always does, is create a situation to where it gives him what he wants.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, he uses the situation and all this tension between Jeff, Britta, and these teenagers to basically create the ultimate food fight
Yep.
in the cafeteria at the end
yeah.
of the episode.
Yeah.
And basically the episode culminates in they beat the teenagers by basically just getting into a food fight with them, and Abed gets his quintessential college list
Yep, he
fulfilled.
gets everything all checked off. Pierce and Shirley have the conversation, and they come together because they realize the group needs them, because they see Jeff and Britta going at it with the teenagers, and they're like, is this really what they're doing without us?
Yeah.
So they go and they help Jeff and Britta, and they pants.
Yeah,
Funny enough,
you're
the teenage
so
kids,
right.
and Britta and Jeff win their whole argument, and then food fight, and it's like, okay, the group needs these people, because
Yeah.
if they didn't have Pierce and Shirley, then Jeff and Britta would just be unhinged and be able to go unchecked and just do whatever they want and make absolute
want.
idiots out of
Yep.
themselves.
Yeah, that's the thing. They also need to be restrained, and sometimes it's like, as much as we see that, like, we look at Pierce and we're like, he's so stupid, he's not wise. It's like, he does have something to offer, and, like, if anything, Shirley and Pierce give some of the wisdom that,
Mhm.
like, that Britta and Jeff's egos make them blind
Are
to.
sorely lacking.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's very true. Also, one thing we need to talk about in the first season is we get some good songs.
We get all the songs.
Yeah.
This episode features a party anthem.
I love
Yes.
it. I just love
Partying. Oh my god. And then the one I always remember is like, why does my father always lie?
Oh my gosh.
And that
so
whole
silly.
song
Yeah.
is on Spotify. Eventually we're going to make some
Oh, yeah,
playlists and
we'll
link to it because
exactly.
No, I'll actually have a community playlist ready for it.
basically, again, another one of the fun episodes. Things do emerge, but it is one of the fun
It's a
episodes.
silly fun
What's
one.
funny is, like, Ashley really loves this one. This is one that Stone and I, like, will skip.
Oh no, I like
because
this
I
one a lot.
fucking hate the
Fuck
kids
those fucking kids.
so much. Because my thing is like I just want to get angry and punch them, and I can't.
Oh, so no, I love the whole Jeff and Britta dynamic because it's even though they are spiraling, like I love seeing them work together.
Oh, you're
just
so
and just go
right.
crazy. Yeah, it's very
so much
fun.
so that they try to get Jeff to hook up with the kid's
mom.
mom.
Exactly, and Britta's like, I just figured it out, and he's like, yes, and they
They're
just
just
hype
so-
each other up and
you're
feed into
so
each other.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
They really together. They end up being like sometimes they bring out the worst qualities in each
like
other.
Dennis and Dee.
Yeah.
Yup.
You read my
But
mind.
Dennis
Oh my
and Dee
god.
could sleep with each other.
Were you reading my mind?
We all read each other's minds.
We're all psychic
We're all
guys.
Because I was like, the only thing is that this Dennis and Dee could fuck, and,
Yeah.
and it's acceptable. But
Yeah.
anyway,
So we only have a few more to talk about.
Big ones.
Episode 20, exactly, big ones. You took the words right out of my mouth because these are some really, really important ones as we move forward. So
yeah.
episode 23, iconic, Modern Warfare, the first of the paintball war episodes that basically take on a life of their own. They become some of the funnest episodes that we see throughout the series.
Mhm.
This is the very first one. I do like that they preface it with sexual tension between Jeff and Britta becomes the hot topic because basically everybody figures out it's like, you guys just want to fuck, right? Like, God, all you guys
Just
do
do
are
it.
bicker and we just want you guys to have sex because this is fucking ridiculous.
You're messing up the dynamic of the group.
of
they say,
the
yeah.
group. Exactly, by being selfish and just like having all this tension
Mhm.
between you guys.
Yeah.
Jeff's like, there's no tension between us. I'm going to go take a nap in my car. And while he's gone,
Apocalyptic situation ensues. Yeah.
all it's all born out of the prize being who gets priority registration next year.
Which
So
is a huge thing, and if you've ever been in community college,
you know how
Oh my
serious
God,
it
understand
actually
being
is.
able to pick your
Understand.
classes without stressing or picking them first is basically
It's
like be
messy.
given a fucking lottery ticket.
It's
Like
actually
it's
very
the best.
true.
So that's why I think it's fun that everyone destroys it because everyone wants like like Jeff says. So you means I can have all my classes on Monday and have a 6-day weekend?
Yep.
Exactly. You can
Yeah.
pick your schedule, which in community college so fucking rarely happens. You have to compromise literally with every
with
single fucking
prereqs
choice.
and everything gets
So I love
filled
that the
up.
school gets annihilated because you know what? A school would get annihilated.
Over that.
You
Right,
get to pick
yeah.
all your
I
classes
think
first.
it's a funny joke, and it's like, oh, it's a hyperbole, but it's like, no.
No.
I feel that strongly about priority
If they
registration.
let me have a paintball war to be able to, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'd be a
6-day
part of
weekend?
that. Yeah,
Duh.
it's
Exactly.
hilarious.
Yeah.
So Jeff comes back and all hell is broken
Oh,
loose.
yeah.
Yeah.
Effectively, it's been an apocalyptic situation, and now everybody's already committed to all out fucking war.
Someone's gonna win this. Of course, it turns out that priority registration doesn't exist.
Oh yeah,
but
that's
at
the whole
end.
Yeah,
that
that's
comes
the
in
whole
at the
crux
end.
of it.
But so Jeff gets out of his car from his nap and has to basically figure out what's going on. Abed finds
Gather
him,
the group.
brings
yeah.
him to Troy, and the group they all find each other and agree to band together until it's the last of them standing because
and
they're
Britta,
their family
Yeah.
and they want to try to win and decide who's going to get the priority registration, and they end up getting picked off in their own little ways one by one. Who's the first one to go?
First one to go, I'm pretty
Isn't it
sure
Troy?
is Troy.
Yeah.
Troy
got mad!
Oh
Yeah.
my God, you're so right. This one I'm gonna
Nice,
like.
Stone.
And then Shirley, then Annie gets taken out. Then Pierce gets taken out. And then I think Shirley and Abed are left.
No,
with
you're
Jeff
right.
and
Yeah.
Britta.
No, Shirley, Abed, Jeff, and Britta. You're right.
Yeah.
And then Abed goes.
Abed gets taken out. Yeah, he gets in the legs.
Mm-hmm.
Because he chased the people. And then Shirley gets taken out.
And the whole
In the
time,
back.
Jeff
In the
is
back,
like,
yeah.
why the fuck are we doing this? This is so
Mhm,
stupid.
mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
or he feels like everybody's getting way too into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's like, this is so silly. But then he wants priority registration. And then the four, it's Jeff, Shirley, Britta, and Abed. They have this moment about, what would you guys do if you have priority registration? They're around a fire in the
Yeah.
cafeteria. It's totally hilarious.
So true.
Yeah.
And they're talking about that, and Shirley
the secret's
says,
right there.
cute, here we go. And
Yeah.
Shirley says she'd use it to, be able to see her son and, see her
Her
family
kids
more.
Yeah,
more,
because she
Yeah.
doesn't see them enough.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Britta, very much in Britta fashion, is like, you know what? If I win this tournament, I'm going to give you my priority registration. And everyone's like, oh,
Yeah.
Abed's like, that's really nice. Me too. And Jeff,
It's like,
because
It's like,
Whatever,
you're an
Britta.
asshole.
Yeah.
Now you're making everybody else feel guilty and feel
for
like
being
we have to
selfish
do
and
that.
being one to
Yeah.
do things for themselves. Which I'm glad Jeff is an advocate for. Is like, I understand that he's selfish, but like, it isn't selfish to like want to make choices for yourself and to do things for yourself that
Mhm.
will help your life. Like, I'm sorry that it is at your loss, but then at the same time, your gain is at my
the same
loss.
time.
So both views are equal. Shirley shouldn't be like, we should do that. It's like, if Shirley wins or someone who wants Shirley to win, we should do that. But if I win, I can do whatever I want with it because it's just as valid.
I shouldn't be forced to do like your will, like
Mhm.
yours isn't technically right. Also, because it's not fair
That's
to like
not
live your
as
life for
nice.
other people.
But then
So,
Britta
yeah.
basically becomes the avatar for Shirley's will and is like, I'm in the game so that way Shirley can get what she wants. And then
Mhm.
Jeff's like, I'm in the game because I want to get what I want. And it's
Prove
just
you
those
wrong,
two.
Britta.
Yep.
And their tension has just been escalating the
Escalating.
entire
You're
episode.
so right. And the whole time it's like leading up. Even they start bickering, and then everybody points guns at them, like because they're so tired.
Exactly,
of
they're
them
ready
just-
to take him out.
We get it, guys.
Exactly.
You want to fuck.
The dean basically admits that priority registration can't happen,
Yep.
and
Chang helps him with the situation, making Chang a student, entering him into a class, and be like, well, then you can take everyone out, and I don't have to worry about priority registration because Chang won and Chang doesn't care.
Exactly.
So then
So
Chang
Chang's
enters
just
it.
excited to fuck shit up.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah,
to
and
be
he has
the
his own
chaos.
gun, and
Yeah.
he's a Scarface
So then,
costume and
meanwhile-
everything.
Meanwhile, before Chang goes full Scarface,
Yeah.
Jeff and Britta fully
Are in the study
decide
room.
to
They're kind of
fuck.
like
Yeah,
holding it
yeah.
out. They're waiting for like the last people to come and attack
She
them.
plays doctor and has to
Exactly,
like
and
fix
they
his
do the
wound.
whole exactly.
Ooh,
They do the whole
they
thing.
make
They
fun of
joke
it.
about it.
Yeah.
I love that they joke about it though. It makes it. I
Right?
think it makes it that much better. And then they actually do it, and you're like, oh, they're not just gonna joke about it.
I
Here we
love
go.
because I think one thing that it establishes is like, oh, we're so much smarter. We know what
Uh-huh.
everybody
We're
wants.
not gonna do
We're
it.
not going to do it. And then it's like they do it anyway.
because
They
they
totally
both
do it.
have been
They don't
dying.
want to
for
fuck all
the
it.
season.
entire
They've
season.
been
Since
watching
they
each other
met.
be with other people. They've been
Uh-huh.
wanting each other since the start. It's like, let's just
Just
go.
do it.
Yep. So
And
then
they do.
want to fook, and then they fook.
Yep.
And then Britt obviously points the gun at him, and he's just like, "Are you fucking serious?"
You're really gonna
And
do
they
this?
both prove that they're both manipulative
That they're both
bastards.
manipulative.
I
They're
love
both
it.
trying to get what they want. And then Chang walks in to
Chang
just
comes in.
end shit, which is one of my favorite scenes with Chang in it, because
Yeah.
he literally
Yeah.
just loses his fucking mind
Yeah.
and tries to end the whole fucking game.
Britta is true to herself and being a good person. She accepts that Jeff got the hat on her because Jeff took the bullets out of her gun. So when she tried to pull it on him, Jeff was going to win the game technically before Chang came in. So then Britta is a good person. So I was like, I'll go for you. Actually goes down.
Sacrifices, yeah.
Jeff sees like basically this entire game, people doing things for each other and giving up for each other. That at the end, he's grown enough to be like, priority registration does exist, and it's for Shirley.
And exactly, and you're giving it to me, and not this bullshit DVD.
And not this bullshit DVD player. You're so
Exactly.
right.
And
And-
Jeff comes to bat and makes sure that Shirley that they get what they want. That
Yeah.
they actually that Shirley gets what she deserves and,
And
actually
in the end,
grows.
He does
And
end up giving it
understands.
to Shirley, and
Yeah.
it's his own choice, not because he feels guilted to
Yep.
do it,
Yeah.
but because he actually sees that, like,
The value in that.
yeah.
Which is great. It's another episode where we see Jeff like picking the study group over himself and his own interests.
So episode 24.
That's where they have their test, right? And
Yeah, it's the
Annie
final.
records
So it's their
every-
Spanish final.
Yeah.
And they're talking
exposes
about
Chang.
it, deciding whether or not they're going to take class together. Da 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 da.
Right.
Annie listens to her notes and listens to the conversation. That beginning the episode, Chang basically comes out to Jeff. He's like, "I'm not a real teacher."
Yep.
And
Yeah, because
Spoiler
he's
alert.
like,
The
yeah,
entire
because you're not a
spoiler.
real lawyer, right?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not a real teacher.
Yeah,
I'm just
Chang
coming
has
up
not
to
been
you.
a real Spanish teacher for the entire
The
first season.
entire
He
season.
drifted
Find
his
out.
way into that position.
Yep.
That's why his brother
And
called
then
him
that's
out.
why he goes to Jeff, because he's like, hey, you're the ultimate grifter. You
Exactly.
faked a
Oh,
law
yeah. Help me
degree.
out.
How do I get through this? And he's like, I'm here.
Yeah,
So I don't know how I'm
I
supposed to
didn't
help
do
you.
too great.
Yeah.
And Annie turns in Teacher Chang, and Teacher Chang loses his job.
And this is basically because Annie is also being manipulative
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
selfish.
And selfish,
Yeah.
Because she's
she
so
doesn't want the
worried.
group.
Go ahead. No, you're
Oh,
totally
no.
right.
She's worried that the group is going to go their separate ways because they're not going to have Spanish class to
To
keep them
hold them
together
together.
anymore.
And it's kind of, I think it kind of hurts the group a little bit because they're like, you don't trust that we're close enough that we have to have like a class
we have to
together.
take this class again
Mhm.
together. It's just that we stay friends. Like, and it shows off Annie's insecurities that she
Oh,
has
yeah.
about
Yeah.
losing her friends and her family.
And again, we see that she can take a page out of Jeff's book
Definitely.
and manipulate everybody and make a situation work for just her.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody else has to suffer and retake this class potentially.
Exactly.
But it won't
Annie
be suffering
gets what
for
she
her.
wants.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but she gets her friends. Exactly.
And for her, it's the greater good, but everybody else is suffering.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah, and then
okay,
we get
so
to
then
see
the B
Troy's-
story.
Which is one thing I really enjoy is like Troy and like the trade school route and like the
Yes.
non-college route.
It explores this whole other side of college, this whole other curriculum, and also the value that everybody has. It's
Mhm.
like,
Yeah.
as long as you're giving, like whether you're trying to be a good student, whether you're a repairman, as long as you're trying, like that's all that really matters, you know?
Exactly, Yeah.
And so that's one thing I appreciate, that they kind of show that it's like, Troy kind of looks down on it at first, and he's like, I'm just trying to be in school and hang out with my friends and stuff, and he's like, you actually have like a gift, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. Don't look down on that.
But yeah, so exactly, they're forced to take this test. Annie's not there. They go to her rescue, and then everybody bails, which is one thing I like. Because even
Hilarious.
Starburns is like, we all love
Hannah.
Hannah.
Yeah.
And then they all walk out.
Yeah.
And then later on they
Test
end
gets
up
postponed.
yeah, so they have some time to study. They end up taking the test later, and then they all realize that they had what it took to pass
The whole time.
the whole time.
Actually, they did, but then afterwards, it's like Annie was like,
Oh,
that one's
you're
especially
right.
easy, and it turns out that Pierce actually took home the new professor that
You're
they got,
right.
which was like an older lady,
Older
Latino
Hispanic lady, yeah.
and they had a night together, and she gave him an easy test because this is like
Because
a
she had a
thank
good
you.
time.
Yeah.
So Pierce actually went and bat for the group and kind of like
Yeah.
solved this,
And
kind
did
of Frank
something.
Reynolds it solved the situation in the
Yep,
background
but
at the end
very
of the
low
episode.
key.
Yeah.
Yep, he
Yeah,
did.
yeah. And one thing that I like is Pierce does have a moment of growth because he doesn't tell everybody
Yep.
And get all
and
the
make
credit.
everybody
Exactly.
give him all the credit and celebrate him. It's
It's
actually
totally not
something
like him
that
to
goes
talk about it.
completely yeah, exactly.
I
It goes
love that.
completely uncredited.
Yeah.
And it's really just because he cares about everybody enough that he just
Wants us
wanted them to pass.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh.
Right? It's
So
like
it's a lot of
moment.
growth in this episode.
it's funny because
Yeah.
it's like, oh, this is unrealistic and blah, 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 blah. But it's like, again, we've talked about it before. Even in the sillier episodes, there's real growth.
Yep.
There's real commitment to who these characters are. And even though they're not perfect, they're always trying to get better and they're trying to do things in the ways that they can.
Mhm.
And I think that that's so important.
Definitely.
So we've gone through, we've talked about just about everything. Now let's talk about the season finale of season 1. We'll wrap it up with our final thoughts on the series overall.
House Guys Triangle Revisited.
Yes.
Season 1 finale.
Season 1 finale. At this point, Slater has dumped Jeff.
Yeah.
They're not together.
Yeah.
Britta and Jeff have now had sex, so something is brewing between them.
there's this
But a lot of
tension.
stuff is in the air. There's
Yeah.
so much tension, and basically,
Slater's coming back in the picture. She's
Yeah.
kind of going to be interested again.
she's
Yeah,
like,
it's the end of
hey,
the school year. There's the big old tranny dance.
oh my
Transfer
god,
dance.
there's the
Yep.
tranny dance.
Britta's
Everybody's
nominated
for tranny queen.
Exactly. So Jeff is put in a situation where he's actually confronted by 2 of these women who are now interested in him.
Yep.
And yeah, the love triangle thing comes to a head, and
Yep.
he basically
The thing
has
that
to-
they've been building to the whole
yeah.
series thus
Yeah.
far
Mhm.
long, all
Yeah,
season
full
long.
season, yeah. So we get to see a couple fun things happen now. This is a real like test of like relationships and all the things that we set up. So we see in this one, like obviously we've got the Jeff Britta stuff, but we see Troy and Abed and them we get by this point being really close.
Mhm.
Abed's Rager is really close. Troy is like, I don't have anywhere to live. I want to live with Abed. And Abed is kind of completely sandbagging that idea,
Yeah.
not paying attention, kind of being completely like, oh yeah, huh, whatever. And just like
Yeah.
not paying attention. And Troy doesn't really understand why. And Abed isn't one to communicate very
Mhm.
forwardly. So then Troy's just kind of like frustrated the whole
And getting
episode.
his feelings hurt.
He has an analogy with a giant cookie, realizing the reason why Abed doesn't want to live with Troy is because they're such good friends. They don't want to ruin it. Eat a giant cookie
and
and
have
make your
too much
stomach
is a
sick
good thing.
is not a good thing. Exactly. So then we also see that Pierce, growing throughout the whole series, decides to actually extend his hand out to Troy and be like, well, why do you live with me? We'll figure it out. Like, we got along in the beginning. Like, I like you. You like me.
We have some stuff in
we can
common.
make this
We
work.
can
I
probably live
want people
together.
to need me. I have
Yep.
people who actually like me. How about if I want people to need me and I'm able to help the people that like me, I should just be there for them rather than be manipulated. Be like, why don't you
He's
live with
learned
me?
that.
And we'll
Yeah.
work it out.
Yeah.
So that was a really great moment for Pierce. A really cool moment where Pierce and Troy start bonding together. And like, it feel like the relationship was kind of going by the wayside. It was in there in the beginning, and then they kind of outgrew each other, and there's still like a place for each other in their life. Maybe not what it used to be, but they've evolved into a new relationship, which is
Yeah.
really cool. We see Vaughn and Annie actually
You're
getting ready to
right.
move away the threat of like
Yes.
Annie being like, no, I want to like the whole series. Everyone's like, Annie, you need to loosen up, like with seeing the reverse Porkies. You need to see what a penis looks like.
Yeah,
You need to do the STD fair. You need to
Mhm.
do all these things that are going to make you grow, change, be a little bit more like Jeff, be more like whoever. She's learned all this. She's grown a lot. She's kind of becoming a new character. She's
and
coming
now
out
she's
of
ready to
cocoon.
go and make her own choices.
I want to do my own thing. I want to live my own life. I know I'm smart. I want to make a choice that's in the moment. And she decides that she's going to go look at colleges with Fawn, but secretly, and tells Jeff to the side, like, I'm actually not coming back.
Mhm.
And then she kind of just leaves, and everyone's like, oh shit, Annie's gone. Then we kind of pick up back with the Jeff Britta Slater storyline where
Which all culminates at the
Mhm.
tranny dance.
yeah, Duncan is talking with Jeff, and they're talking about like how Jeff is so vi, da-da-da. Britta and Slater come up to Jeff and are basically both just presenting themselves, being like,
Yep.
well, there's me,
They
I'm
both
cute, I'm
show
here for
up,
that,
and they're
da-da-da.
very clearly fighting over Jeff.
Competing for it.
We
Then
finally
they,
got to that point.
Yeah.
then we
And-
get Britta doing her big no-no.
And one thing
Yeah,
I will
yeah,
say
yeah.
is, like, for me at least personally, as much as I love this episode, I love the series, I love the season, that was the only thing I didn't like, is I was
I
like, they
agree.
really did cash in on the
Weak,
trope
right?
of like,
Yeah.
of there's a love triangle, we're gonna make it a literal love triangle, and then we're gonna make them make asses of themselves and
Yep.
fight over him at the dance.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Britta doing this, like, it's funny.
Oh, Britta
but,
has the
ooh.
ultimate
But
cringy moment.
It sucks. It really does, especially
It
for
sucks
her
to watch
character.
too. Yeah.
And then for someone like Jeff, who's like, we've been shown that Jeff doesn't care about any of this really the entire time.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it hurts to see Britta put herself out there and do that for someone
Yeah.
that doesn't really deserve it.
Who doesn't really deserve
Not
it?
at
Who
that
hasn't?
point, definitely not.
No, exactly. Hasn't done anything to earn it at
He
that point.
obviously doesn't appreciate it.
And
or
yeah, he
appreciate
doesn't
her.
appreciate it and doesn't necessarily want it.
Yeah.
No.
You know,
Yeah.
And that's the dilemma he was talking about. Is like he was talking about with Annie. Is like I have Slater, who's like who I want to be in New Year's, the person I want to strive to be, the better
Yes.
person. But then I have Britta, who's me 3 weeks into New Year's, where I'm screening my mom's phone calls and eating.
I'm the
Yeah.
person
You know,
I know I am.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, is it like, do I pick who I am or who I want to be? And these, and kind of like the path, like, it's interesting. Jeff doesn't really see them as like women or people, but as like pathways to his life and his like fulfillment and enlightenment.
That's actually a great point.
Which is also kind of a real selfish thing because he's not like considering Britta's emotions, which clearly he isn't because
Yeah.
of, well, we'll get to it. Basically, Britta at the tranny dance sees that like Slater might be getting in with Jeff and just says, Jeff Winger, I love you, in a microphone,
front of the
super
whole
TV,
In front
super.
of everybody.
Exactly.
Like Miranda said, cringeworthy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Slater comes up and says it too, and then basically everyone is turned into the audience and
Like,
watches
who
waits
are you
like.
gonna pick?
Tim
And-
Slater.
And I
Tim
love that
Britta.
it's a
Oh
little
my God.
exaggerated and
Yep.
ridiculous because it's just like that is the audience. It's like, no, I want you to be Britta. No, I want you to be a Slater. And it's just like this is stupid. This love triangle thing is kind of dumb when we're
Mhm.
like when we put a spotlight on it. This is
We see how
ridiculous.
ridiculous it is.
Picking who we want or this character, this fictional
end
character's
up
love
with.
interest. It's kind of dumb.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And
So
I
then
think
Jeff-
that's why.
Doesn't have any part of it, and he leaves because that's not like what he's about. And then he does his own thing. But when he talks to Annie, he talks about like how he said they're basically pathways to like how he wants to be. And Annie says, well, I'm kind of in the same way. Like, I feel like I want to be this new person. She wants to be the Vaughn Annie.
And she wants to be the fun in
But
the
she also wants to be
moment,
true to
going with the
herself.
flow, Annie.
Exactly. Growing and like that. So then they're kind of in the same place. And then we kind of see it kind of end up where it's like, yeah, and they both don't know what they want to do. They both definitely don't want to be in the situations they just weren't in. And then they kind of find themselves getting closer and closer together. And we see, oh shit, Jeff just kissed Annie. The oldest man besides Pierce in the group just kissed an
kissed the
18-year-old
Youngest
girl.
Yeah.
And it's super skeevy. And the series ends there. And
Yeah.
the first season is like,
Mhm. Well, and then they kiss again.
yeah, and then they kiss again.
You're
Exactly.
right.
They
And
go
then
back for more.
That's
Yeah.
basically where it leaves us. What's going to happen?
Leaves us all hanging.
Yep.
Exactly.
Two women say they love Jeff.
He
and
goes
he
and
leaves them and kisses the young girl that
Yep.
he's-
That didn't profess her love to him.
yeah.
Who didn't ask for it.
but that's been there the whole season
Yep.
anyway.
And he's thought
Exactly.
about, but
Oh,
he's
yeah,
like, no, that's not a
absolutely,
thing though. But once he sees that as a thing, he's like, oh.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And one thing that I like is, and I think Stone and I talked about it a little bit before when we were talking about the show, is that the first season ends open-ended,
Mhm.
kind of leaving Jeff where he started. It's like, well, you're kind of still that asshole, and you kind of
Yeah.
you're kind of leaving on this
Mhm.
shitty note where, yeah, two women just professed their love for you, you abandoned them,
Yep.
and now you're out hooking up with some other chick,
With this
and
18-year-old.
exactly, and it's showing that, like, as much as he's grown, he's still flawed.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
I love
absolutely.
that.
Majorly.
There
Yes.
and they explore that throughout the whole rest of the series, where it's like, as much as growth can happen, there's still so much room to grow.
Core
There's still
traits,
so
yeah,
much
exactly.
exactly so much more growth to happen and so much more to learn. I think the reason he does what he does in the season finale of season 1 makes sense, but then when we meet him later on and him actually being willing to have that conversation and be
Mhm.
like, you know, I respect you, we need more women like you, we actually need you to grow up, and I can't see you as a kid forever,
Exactly.
and I have to deal with the fact that makes me uncomfortable, because now 2 seasons later or a season later or whatever, I can get there and I can be there, but at the end of season 1 he's
Not
still
there.
not there yet.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's why I appreciate that, because growth has happened. We've
Mhm.
seen, as we've talked about in our podcast,
Exactly.
that
Oh, yeah.
there have been so many chances where Jeff has picked other people over himself, has actually started to sacrifice himself for the greater good for the group and things like that, but he still has a long way to go.
Mhm.
Oh,
'Cause
absolutely.
growth and
His arc
change-
is nowhere near done. It's
Yeah.
basically
It
just
doesn't
getting
happen
started.
overnight.
Thank
Yeah.
you. You're so right.
It takes a lot of time and effort.
Exactly. And because you can be focusing on some issues and address some, and then
Mhm.
there are still others that you have to
Like,
work through,
exactly.
you know?
Yep.
And I think that it's fun because that sets us up perfectly for where we go in season 2
Yep,
and all
and
the
where that
way
opens
beyond through the rest of the series.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we successfully
With
talked
that,
about
We
season
did it.
one.
That
We
is
did
season
it.
1 of Community.
Yeah. I mean, it's obviously something that drew us all in. We have a lot of feelings about, so we're going to keep breaking those down in the next few episodes. If you made it through this entire, I don't even know what to call this, novella of a podcast,
Yeah.
we thank you.
Yeah.
Hopefully we pointed out some things that you like, pointed out some insight. I'm hoping next week, once I've had some time to sleep, I have a little bit more time to prep some notes. We'll get more into like a lot of the recurring jokes, just some of the things that maybe we didn't touch base on too much in this episode.
The stuff from season 1 that's going to start affecting season 2. The stuff exactly.
And I think it was
over.
really important that we broke down these episodes because we kind of show that like every episode there's a teachable moment. There are themes that are kind of running throughout the whole series,
right? And an arc that's happening overall.
Yeah, and we're going to explore those more as we move on. And so hopefully next week we'll have more of the recurring jokes that come in, maybe some of the funny ones that were missed, and hopefully we'll have all of you lovely people back to listen to us next week. So I guess this is a perfect time as any to sign off.
Yep.
Thanks for sticking with us.
We appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we'll be back next week with more Community Cast.
Okay.